20 minutes to 7 a.m. here on the United States East Coast. Welcome to Sunrise in Pineland. Glad to see you all, and thank you for spending some time with me this morning. You'll have to forgive me. I'm still in recovery, and one of the things about this disease, for those of you who haven't been paying attention, Dana and I have been trying to overcome COVID here, and you have good days and you have bad days, and this cough, this residual cough, sometimes hits pretty hard. So if I have to take a break once or twice during the program, forgive me. I'm not feeling so terrible I can't do this, although I certainly have been exhausted and fatigued and all those things. But thank you for the prayers of everyone who's been with us, all of your support. We definitely appreciate it, and please keep them coming. Also, have some sad news to share with our audience. Our beloved friend Barb passed away, our Rhode Island red chicken. She had a leg problem that yeah, just she never recovered from. And what ended up happening was last night we were actually sitting upstairs watching TV, and she died in my arms. She had one big what would you call it, spasm, and then she passed away. She was beloved of us, and I know people might laugh, say, "Oh, well, why do you have a chicken inside, or why do you have that?" We live a very quiet life. We choose to live by ourselves. In this day and age, living around people is rather difficult. I think a lot of you can relate to that, and especially with people going crazy. And the bird brought a lot of joy to our lives because she couldn't do very much. We basically cared for her. She was kind of an invalid, but it was nice to just do something that was nice, that there was no ulterior motive, there was no bigger purpose to, other than the fact that this was a being that had life, and that we appreciated it, and that she was there with us, and the rest of our flock is okay, and we'll carry on, and she'll be on in our memories. But she had a lot of good memories with this program and this good show, and we she will definitely be missed by Dana, me, and many of you. I guess her OnlyFans got shut down, so it's one of those things. So thank you for those of you who were kind enough to notice those things. I appreciate that. Before we get into the show, just a reminder, if you want to support the program, the Venmo CVC PRV, PO Box 343, Eagle Lake, Maine 04739. Your help makes this happen. And as you know, and as I told you, I'd be working on a book, Surviving the Fall of America. I actually wrote another 10 pages this morning before I came on. I haven't been able to sleep very well, so my loss is your gain, probably, in terms of me putting together the book for everyone. We're about a third of the way done, and today's chapter was a good one. It was really spending a lot of time talking about the foundations of how the petrodollar system came into being, and really explaining why so many people were mad at America because of that. The Pax Americana, I think, in the fullness of time, will be seen as a very happy, golden sort of age, but we are no longer in that world. When COVID came out, it broke the system, and whether you believe the Western elites were responsible for that, whether you believe it was some other faction, maybe it was the Chinese, maybe it was something, this World Health Organization, World Economic Forums, they broke the old model, and people are looking at different models, and you see a bifurcating world system. You see China and Russia on one side, potentially America on the other. And people have asked me, and it's a good question. I don't have the answers to you, but it is the good right question. Who is on what side, and is this all part of a larger takedown? Is there a player behind them? And that's the question we're going to have to try to find. But for those of us who are living in America, and for us who are Pinelanders, and this is the point of the whole book, is whatever side wins, America is going to lose. America doesn't work as a model anymore because our leadership class is divested from the people. And for a lot of different things, we talk about the cultural rot, we talk about those issues. And so today's show, we're going to get into the day by day of what's happening with that. And really, I want to talk a little bit about what's been happening with the currency situation with Russia. A lot of the Russian channels were really pissed off yesterday over on Telegram, and I was reading them that, that there are these ongoing slow negotiations between Ukraine and Russia, where Ukraine basically put a proposal down there. They were meeting in Istanbul, in Turkey, and they were saying, well, we want to be able to stay in the EU, and we'll demilitarize Crimea for 15 years, but we're not giving it up. And they put a bunch of things in front of that that the Russian people, considering all the sacrifices that their military's made, probably aren't going to go for. And I think it's interesting, at the same time, we actually see Russia shut down one of their pipelines. I think it's called like Yamul or something. They got 3 or 4 of them going to Western Europe. So they have shut shut one of them down. And I saw that the Vatican actually just bought $10 billion or $10 million, whatever it was in rubles, to be able to buy gas from them. So we'll see how that plays out. But Russia's playing this pretty canny, in terms of the economics of it, at least, that they're breaking the petrodollar because they are making it so that there are going to be other options to pay for, oil and potentially now grain, was the thing I was hearing this morning, to in rubles, and that being the case, the use of the dollar, you kind of wonder what value it has. I mean, what, buying into the insanity that's the American economy, and the American military has to either go fight a war to prevent Russia from doing this, which maybe they will. Some people were looking at that. Arms depot inside Russia that was supposedly hit by a Ukrainian missile, in Belgorod, which is on the border there, of eastern Ukraine, and thinking maybe that this was an effort to accelerate the war, to continue it, and that you see the West continuing to try to militarize and operationalize very quickly, even though they're talking at some other level, and how is that going to play out? I'm not really sure yet. But what I do know is that the ruble continues to accelerate in its incline against the dollar, and I don't see what's going to stop the dollar from declining. I don't, these huge spending bills that they're arguing at. I mean, and huge tax increases. All it's going to do is increase capital flight. I mean, it's not a very good plan. I'm not saying I know what a good plan would be. I don't think there is a good plan for trying to save this. I think there's a good plan for trying to get out of this. That's what the Pineland concept is about. That you take your assets you have now, recognize they're going to be worth less later, and use them in ways that benefit yourself, benefit your family, benefit your community, get the goods you need. Because supply shortages are going to be a problem. The ability of goods and services to move between borders are going to be a problem. And that's, that's assuming a good scenario, not even a scenario where we end up in a larger war, which is a real possibility. Because if not, I mean, I mean, I guess this is the question: is what's there to arrest the decline of the American dollar? And America's distracted. I mean, we're talking, what about Will Smith punching Chris Rock? Who gives a shit? I mean, I don't. We're talking about, did Trump have a burner phone on January 6th? I mean, what a media made distraction. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. He didn't do anything, so I guess it doesn't matter now, does it? And what does matter is the fact that, goods are getting more expensive every day, that inflation is going forward, that fertilizers are going to be short, farmers can't afford them, and people aren't going to be able to eat. And, that troll Fauci's popping back up. I saw a thing, a Twitter post supposedly came out from him through Fox News, where he's saying, "Oh, in September we might have to have restrictions again." No, we're not doing restrictions again. I mean, but this is part of the planned takedown, and the question is why do we see this happening? And the book talked about that a little bit. That America was used as the shock troops. We were kind of like the unwitting dupes who went and fought for the New World Order for a very long time. And now, we're just supposed to fight one another, and that's what they want from us. And they're going to get it, because we won't be able to meet our material needs, and we won't understand why we're able to meet them. So, I had a good friend of mine ask me what the flashpoint's going to be, because, I mean, we can see the decline coming. We can see the inflation. And maybe it'll be a food shortage. I don't know. Maybe it'll be a fuel shortage. Maybe it'll be a cyber attack. I mean, the thing is that we almost want there to be a big trigger event, but it may just be a long, slow, painful decline. And I think things that we're going to deal with is food is going to be less available. It's going to be less nutritive. That there's going to be less options available, and that the costs are going to continue to rise. In the best case scenario, you would have a situation that looks like the 1970s: stagflation, oil lines, interest rates through the roof. I mean, I think one thing that'll piss off a lot of people that's going to happen is that the real estate market will tank in the second half of this year if nothing else happens, because the Fed is now signaling, I think, what they say, 7 rate increases. So let's say you add, each time they're adding a quarter, or more. So you'll go from a 0% interest rate to 2% interest rate. That means that buying money is going to be expensive. And how are you going to buy it? People are not going to be able to do that. Thank you, George. That's really, really kind of you. Yeah, I mean, losing Barb was a heavy one for us. I mean, I'll take a second. I mean, you guys like to hear the personal stories. I mean, I'll be honest, Dana and I have never fully recovered from the move we had to make. We made a heroic throw from a comfortable situation to an uncomfortable one, and that we have tried to live and survive on our own as best we can. We're two people in our 40s who are not in great health. Who try very hard to be as self-sufficient as we can and to work with others. But we need help, and that's one of the things that's really hard. And for me too, especially, I've always been someone who makes it on my own. That's why I'm sitting here. I'm going to write the books. I hope you guys get them. Those resources will both provide you with knowledge and provide us with some resources to be able to take care of ourselves. But we moved in here, we got our stuff in here, and when we did it, we got everything over that we needed to, but we never fully got unpacked. We never got fully settled. We just never could. And with not having electricity for 3 months, Lord knows it was a nightmare. And on one hand, it was a challenge and it was kind of fun, but like at some point, if the hits keep coming, how long can you keep going? And that's one of the things we've struggled with, and I don't know how else to put it. We have friends and we've had people who step up, and I'm incredibly grateful. I don't want to sound otherwise. It's just, and maybe I'm not alone in this, but we're tired. And a main winter will do that to you. We're just starting to come out of it, and we'll have to deal with the consequences of what we had to do to survive that. I mean, it's getting everything to balance is we're not there yet. One second. But I mean, you look at this world and you see the decline coming forward, and you ask yourself this question: what are you fighting for? What do you believe in? And of course, for me, I'm a Christian. I fight for the Lord Jesus and I speak for the truth he has. But I mean, I don't really, fighting for big politics and big issues and economics. And I can tell you it's going to fall apart. The details of it we can go through as it goes forward, and whether it falls off fast, which is what I kind of think is going to happen, or maybe it'll take a while. I don't know. But I mean, I guess it's really forced us to have a reprioritization of our lives, and maybe this is the thing, rather than thinking about when it's going to fall, we need to be thinking of what we can do to preserve what has value, how we build communities together, and how we group up. And we tried doing that. I mean, that was what got Dana and I in trouble, if I'm honest about it. And we kept picking the wrong team. I don't know. We tried to do it on politics. We tried to do it on ideology. We tried to do it on personal affection. We try to do it in a lot of different ways, and that's why, I've become so devout about things over time. That's why I do my sermons most Sundays, because, at least with Christians, I know that we're walking in the same direction, or at least trying to. I mean, we all stumble, and that's okay, but at least if we're looking at the same prize, we can lift one another up. And I think with America, that's the thing. We're all looking in 100 different directions. We're looking around us in fear of what other people are going to do. We're looking at a future, where, I mean, I don't know what it has for us. I mean, I imagine two different futures. I imagine one where we end up in a major war because the dollar is so impoverished that we have to go fight for it, and that we see the destruction of the U.S. As a result of that, and that you see something that's a collapse scenario. Or I imagine where we surrender the dollar and we go into impoverishment, and then we use technology to come back, but technology controls each of us, and then we have to live our lives in even more orderly ways. The same sort of woke cancel culture stuff that so many of us hate. Technological surveillance. They haven't stopped making those passports or those quarantine camps or all these surveillance measures. None of that stopped. We have a distraction, and it's a real distraction. It's not one you can ignore. People say, oh, well, so many people on the internet go out there and they say, oh, well, this is a distraction from that. I mean, no, life is like this. You sometimes get multiple challenges and you have to deal with more than one at once. And sometimes while you're trying to solve A, B gets you. And this is the problem. And this is why I talk about cascade failure. Give me one second. So, I mean, those are the things that worry me. And so, I'm watching what's happening. I'm watching they want to put this huge bill out there, right? And people ask, why don't I talk about domestic politics? I'm like, well, what are you going to say? I mean, that you have an incredibly unpopular regime in the Biden regime that, goes out there and contradicts itself daily. But, people support it because they say, oh, well, the other side's worse. Well, the other side was pretty bad. It didn't work very well. And I know there are a lot of Trump fans who watch this thing, and that's fine, but he didn't do what he said he was going to do. And honestly, he enabled Biden in the same way that Obama enabled Trump. And I'm like, at the end of it, you're like, well, what's the core of what would be good and be healthy? And uh, that's why, when we talk about this great reset, and I think about what the great reset is for me, I think, that's why I hang out with my birds and my wife, and that, what we need to do is build societies that are apart from that, where we grow our own food and we don't have to care what's happening in Washington. We don't have to count on the supermarket to work. I mean, all these systems are dependent upon people um, being able to exist in a system that has helped all of us. And the more you depend on these systems, the more trapped you're going to be, and the more bad compromises you're going to have to make. And maybe that's the lesson that maybe I want to pull forward today. I mean, it's a little hard because I'm a little foggy, so you'll have to bear with me if I can't get quite as sharp as I'd like to. I'm using my energy as best I can to get this book together for you, and hopefully the plan is the next 2 days I'm going to be talking about, the economic consequences of inflation, and sort of my vision of where this technological tyranny is going to go. Then we'll spend the second half of the book talking about, really good practical advice from a life hard learned, probably most practical book here that I've written since coming Civil War. Great Reset means to be 100% independent or 100% slave. Yeah, I think that's fair. I agree, Free Green, that, that's how we have to approach the question in liberty. But for people, that's hard. You're fortunate in that you have certain talents and aptitudes. A lot of people don't necessarily have those yet, but it's something to work towards. And of course, that's what's needed. But when you work towards something, what is the foundation upon which you're going to build that? What is the keystone upon which, the rock upon which you'll build all else on? And that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm writing this book as well, to give you some logic about some things you can't step on. Because, like, no one can guarantee success. The world doesn't work that way. But I can tell you at least some things that will fail. And if you can avoid things that will make you fail, then that has value, I think. Mm. But I think the idea that there's an easy solution or that there's a technology solution to everything is wrong. And it's not a comment for or against technology, really. I mean, I'm sort of a technophobe, but that's not really the point of this. The point is that it's the cohesion between people and the commonality of vision that I personally have come to believe brings us together. I mean, who we are determines what we do. And we have for so long been willing to accept all these identities, let's call them that have been pushed upon us. And, as an American, as a North American, even, we got some Canadians with us this morning. We are supposed to fight for certain values, but those values are not upheld. They're not values that we actually practice. We haven't practiced them for many years. And we have elites who have been trying and working along the peripheries to have greater control. And I don't even resent elites for having control. I mean, look, you're going to have nature abhors a vacuum. You're going to have hierarchies. But their idea of control is to build a future where it's just them and they get rid of the people beneath them. And it's that lack of empathy. It's this cold sociopathy. It's this amorality. And you see it, whether you see it in like this collectivist mindset, right? That your left-wing Fabian socialists have, or like the amoral libertarians who say, well, as long as you're making money, it's a good deal. I mean, there's no care. There's no heart. Christ talked about that you need to have a heart for people. And it's hard to have a heart when you're far removed from nature. It's hard to have a heart when you're removed from animals. I had a heart, and I was sad. I was crying last night. I mean, I won't lie. I was holding my bird, and she passed away. And people could laugh at that. And people will laugh at that. Some asshole will probably write a story about, oh, Tom lost his bird and he's sick. Isn't he so happy? But where's the joy in that? Where's the joy in other people's suffering? And yet that's what we live in. We see, and maybe this is the problem of the West. We've seen everything as a contest, a competition for a very long time. He who wins with the most toys wins. Well, I'm not here to compete with anyone. I'm here to be comfortable. I'm here to, and not to be lazy. I mean, I like doing the work. I like seeing the achievements. It's not like this choice they give you where you have to be a world getter or you're a slob. It's rather community and continuity. It's this balance that we struggle to seek, and that we need to find now. It's people who are not clever or indolent, but wise. And I mean, I guess for me it's hard because, like, I have realized, and I was telling Dana last night, there's all these things I can do and can't do, and I used to do a whole heck of a lot more, and I'm too tired. I can't do it. I can't fight for everything in the world. I have some big thoughts. Sometimes they're useful. Maybe you enjoy them, and I'm a decent analyst. I can share those with you. So I'll go out there and do that. And, hopefully keep each other safe, have some friends, have some family, some relationships. You guys help take care of us. We appreciate that. And maybe one day, we'll convince the right people. We'll do something bigger. And we know the right people. It's just a matter of getting them to do what they got to do. And, things have to happen in the time the Lord determines. But, um, I don't know how much time we have left. And, I sit here and I think, we could get into a very big fight, could see a major war break out. I mean, if America's elites try to protect the dollar, I think that does happen. How fast that happens, some people think it's going to take a little longer till May. NATO would certainly like to wait to get more people in there. Um, and people are adapting. Yeah, I was reading a story, several different stories, things I was reading about. There was this piece asking why Poland's accepting all these Ukrainian refugees when they were an anti-refugee country. I wonder why. Maybe it's because they want people who are like them. And that's the thing. It's like you're not allowed to say that, but people want to be around people who are like them. It's not that people are bad or good. I mean, everyone's bad in their own way, and everyone has a capacity for good. We're all sinners. But it's that people want to be in a community where they have a shared purpose and shared meaning, and that's it. I mean, it's the idea you accomplish things together, and it's hard because we're used to finding people who are kind of like us, and we're not good at being around people who aren't like us. Technology always comes in between us, right? And it's allowed us to self-select, but we don't necessarily select well. I mean, look at the history of romantic relationships and the divorce rate if you want proof of that. But we'll have to figure our way through these things, and I really do think we're at the beginning of new tribes. I wrote a whole. I mean, people would be surprised to read this, but in the book I was writing for a page or two about immigration, I'm like, I don't care about immigration rules anymore. People are like, oh, how can you say that? And I say that because if there's good people who will work with me, what difference does it make? I mean, we're bringing everyone in anyways. If you're a good, if you got her friends like Alice over there, and and got superficial dumb in Australia, and we got people all around the world, Sammy and all that. I'd love to have you guys in the group. What difference does it make? You're not American? Okay. So as long as you don't try to make us use a metric, it's fine. That's where I draw the line. I don't want, Lord knows I don't want to deal with damn Celsius. Fahrenheit for life, right? Who knows? One of those quirks of being in the States, or the colonies, as y'all might say. Um, but it's, yeah, I mean, that stuff doesn't matter now. And this is one of the things people still don't understand. The world that was is gone. I mean, COVID broke it. And a lot of people, even if the people at the bottom want to go back to it because they don't know any better, the people at the top see different things, and what the contests are going to be in the future. There's a fight about who will control it, and I don't want to control it. I don't think it matters to control it. I want to experience it. I want to live it. I want to, be able to be out of their control. That's all I want. I mean, all I really need to control is the ability to take care of my wife, maybe to take care of my flock. I'd love to get some more alpine goats again. I miss having my goats. I miss them badly. Um, and I'd like to have people I have good conversations with. Some of my best memories. I mean, there aren't these big things I've done and these huge things. It's sitting with a bottle of red wine with some friends late in the evening, just telling stories and talking about ancient history. Actually, that's my favorite thing, to talk about that, and maybe teaching somewhere. I've always kind of thought I'd be a good teacher. It can't happen now, at least not this side of the fall. But I like doing my farming. I like digging around the soil a little bit, and I don't mind playing with the animals. I'd like a little help mucking the stables. Lord knows it's a little exhausting to do that every day, but these are the things, and I'm focused on those things because I can't control the big things. I mean, there's no politician that's going to help you. They can't. They don't. What's going to happen is that the resources aren't there. Yeah, I mean, the campfire, that's great. I love the campfire. It's good. It's good. Get around the horseshoe pit and. Get back to this. We were given a garden, and it's like that soothing paved out paradise turned into a parking lot. Anyway, but we really did. We could go back to doing things simpler. I mean, and we need to do that. And if we have the right priorities in life, then we can have tools. But our tools use us instead of us using the tools. And that's what concerns me. So people ask, people have been trying to figure out what the next move is. And, I think that, like I said, I think the dollar is going to continue to lose value quickly here. I think that we're going to see a heavy increase in the cost of food and fuel, especially fuel. The United States, Europe is going to get hit worse, in my opinion, with the gas shortages. And what that will mean for their economies is hard to say. I do think civil unrest is a possibility. I do think that the propaganda state is going to try to create distractions. I don't know if they're going to try to create a war or if they're going to use political, cultural issues. I think that people who live in cities are going to be at risk. I think that as things become more violent because goods are less available, people in the countryside will keep what they have to themselves. Small producers will go a certain way. I think the government will try to compel compel people to act to support the people in the cities if it gets real bad, and people in the countryside will offer resistance. You already see this, like in, I think it was in Montana, they're pumping oil again, even though the state doesn't, or excuse me, the federal government doesn't want them to. I think those sort of things will happen. I think you're going to see that where you live is going to matter a lot more than it used to. That the idea that there's one America is giving way more and more quickly to multiple Americas or multiple Canadas or wherever, and that your geography is going to play a very large role in your future. And I think that as we see the peak price come down of property, if you are someone who has assets that you can convert quickly into the ability to buy actual goods. I think, if you have gold or silver or commodity, that's good. Russia's good trade in Bitcoin. Maybe it'll hold up. I don't know. Some people think it will. I just don't like it because I don't like the idea of being part of a technological matrix, and that's what that's going to eventually lead to. But what I do think is that we are all probably going to go through times where we can't meet our needs the way we're used to. I mean, we can prepare for it, we can prepare for food, but there might be energy shortages, there might be electrical outages, there might not be enough money to make ends meet. I mean, you guys usually have more money than I do. I always say that because I've never focused on it. I tried a couple times, and I'm just not. I get too many other responsibilities to worry about that. Consider it, soul balancing or whatever. I can do some things really well, but finances are not my. I can explain what's going to happen, but Lord knows I just don't have the stomach to play the game long enough. Um, so those are things that I think are worth keeping an eye on. But the biggest thing at this point, and I'm going to say this every episode, is just to get out. I mean, your two priorities really are get right with God. I mean, that's always the biggest priority because, the unknown black swans can happen very easily when people don't know where they stand. And number two is to get out and get out of the system as much as you can, and I've always said this, and I really believe this, is that if you don't know how to land, find a small town, get a little job, a cheap little apartment if you can. I'm sure there's something, even if it's a trailer, and just land and let yourself get into the space, and that might be an option. It's hard to go from the top to the bottom, and trying to pick up every piece at once is more than most people can manage. And if you don't know how, you can ask for help. We'll help. I mean, we have a good community. The Telegram group will help, t.me/Atlantic Homeland. That's good. Good morning, Chris, and good morning to everyone who's here with us this morning. Thank you for coming in here this morning. You have to forgive me if I'm a little slow today. I'm trying to. Well, I'm also fighting a toothache too, which isn't helping. It's making this, a very difficult morning, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and push through it, and we're going to find the ways to, come out the other side of this. And a lot of people are wondering what the next thing is. I do feel like we're on the verge of a narrative shift. If the thing in Ukraine doesn't advance anymore, some other awful thing is going to be thrown at us. And I can't help but feel like they're going to want to do another run with the COVID thing and say, oh, it's going to be this bad. And maybe it will be. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, I can't tell you what is going to happen and what isn't good. Cassandra, thank you for that. That's very kind. I don't know what the next thing is going to be. I know some people have gotten very sick from it, and I'm not here to make fun of it. I mean, Lord knows I'm miserable because of it. But the launching of depopulation attacks, when Rome's, I guess this is a good example. Let's use some history. History is always important. When Rome started to really fall fast in the 4th century and 5th century AD. Rome went from being a city of 1 million people to under 100,000 very quickly. In fact, it got down to under 10,000 because what happened was people scattered and they couldn't survive because the resource centralization wasn't there. And that you may see mass death as a result of the inability of systems to provide food and well-being. And what happens is, even if you have half the food, but you have the same amount of people, they're going to fight over it, and the fighting over that's going to lead to the destruction of goods. And this is how dark ages happen. And it's certainly, as you've seen the centralization of food, and some of you are big followers of Ice Age Farmer and other channels like that, about how we've seen, the Bill Gates buying all the farmland, the idea of these insect proteins as another example. you see a lot of different efforts to control the food supply and the efforts through climate change actions to, say that we're going to make sure you don't have access to grow land. I mean, that's kind of crazy to me. You'd want more agriculture. I mean, ideally, you'd want decentralized agriculture where people grow their own food. But instead, we spend, literally millions of dollars a year, probably billions actually, in enforcement so that people can't grow food at their property. They can only grow grass that's useless that grows weeds. I mean, not that you can't use a dandelion for a salad, but you get what I'm saying. Um, so it's kind of crazy how our whole system is set up for this opulence and luxury instead of utility. And this is one of the things that, I encourage you as we come into the spring season to take a stand against, even if you're just growing one tomato plant or, if you try to have one hen, which, maybe you can and maybe you can't where you live. It's amazing the amount of places you can't do that. One of the things I love about northern New England is the food sovereignty movement and how many people have worked to try to make it so that we can grow our own food and share our own food, things that are healthy like raw milk and, you know, different abilities to grow things. I mean, that's why I got my waders. I'm gonna be out there fishing, so I can actually have some food. This year if it comes to that. Not that I probably won't catch a damn thing. Just catch mosquito bites and sunburn. That's what I'll catch. But at least I'll be out there trying. And I've kind of accepted the Charlie Brown life I live. My job is to go kick the football and just if I fall on my butt, I mean that's not so bad. At least I'm out there, trying to experience life and trying to do something with it while we have time left. And you know, I guess that's the other thing. I was sitting there last night with the missus, and we were just talking about it. And I was just saying that, there's not a lot of good out there, but sometimes there's still some good inside. And if you have things that are dear and precious to you, taking some time to appreciate them and to explore those and seek inside. The thing is, when you get into a dark age, it's really hard to survive. But on the other hand, you learn a lot about yourself. You learn about overcoming challenges. You learn about what was important, and it's a chance to reflect on what you did wrong. And we had all this stuff, but what did we do with it? What are we doing with it? We still have a lot of stuff. I mean, there's not enough time to rebuild, recast entirely, but we could take things from it. And this is my challenge to you over this summer. Can we find a way to do something so we can give up the bad, keep what's good, and protect one another? And I'm going to try to persuade people. And my own survival's caught up in it too, because I can't do it, amount. I admit it. I can't do it. The Lord Jesus can provide miracles, but we need to help one another too. We're told to have fellowship. We're told to do these things, and for us, a lot of it we kept away because we got so sick of fighting with people who we thought believed the same things as we did and who didn't. And I'm sure a lot of you have walked down that road too. Um, and I know not everyone here believes the same thing. I get that, and there's sometimes that's okay, and we can be friends. And there's sometimes there's a little bit of distance there, but we can still talk. And just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean you can't be cordial and friendly. I mean, people have always had this dumb idea about me personally. I read these stories. Tom, this angry, hateful person. You will never find anyone I was mean to or cruel to. I'm not built that way. I mean, unless someone hurts my wife, that's the only thing I really get mad about, or hurts children or something like that. Things that any sane person would get upset about. But I mean, you have to deal with people with respect, and you let people make their choices, and good fences make good neighbors. I don't want to have a one size fits all world. I don't want to, fight for a new world order. And I mean, I'm a little bit of a Slavophile. I'll own that. I'm glad that they're fighting the new world order because I fear, technology matrix future. But not gonna pretend Russia's this good guy. They're not, and China's not either. Lord knows they're a nightmare for their own people and for everybody else. And yet we see this rush for all these systems, the dragon and the beast and the whore and all these things, and it's just like I don't want any part of it. I mean, I've tried to get as far away as I can, but it's funny. Like the thing I've actually gotten wrong, if I'm really 100% honest with you, is I've assumed wrongly to this point that this thing wouldn't hold on as long as it did. But inertia is strong. I mean, I should know better from my own history. I mean, Rome was in decline for 200 years before it fell apart. I mean, America's not going to fall apart in a day. There's too much wealth in it, and yet, I mean, certain attacks, certain traumas, certain lashing out could lead to that. I mean, it's not too far to see that, the dollar is going to lose probably, even in a good scenario, I'd guess maybe three-quarters of its value. I mean, can you afford prices to quadruple? I mean, and really, even if the dollar just lost three-quarters of its value, you'd expect prices to do more than quadruple because what will happen is supply chains will shift. So not only will the dollar buy less, but the availability of goods will be less. And because there'll be other things, the government will try to, for a while, subsidize things. I mean, they'll have to do that. They'll have no other choice. But I mean, and realistically, we should be doing that now. I mean, like even here, like we got governor election coming up in Maine, for instance, and we got two people who represent traditional views, and that's not what's needed. What's needed is to rapidly try to build power to make electricity cheap or free for Mainers, so that we could survive. But I mean, there's no one who's invested in the little people. People are invested in the people who are in the process, and the process is broken, and it represents the interests of the people only involved, and it doesn't represent you. It doesn't represent me, and it doesn't matter if you're left wing or right wing or where you're coming from on a spectrum. That stuff doesn't really matter now. I mean, we are all collectivists. We are all individuals. You need to have people around you who can help, and you need to help provide for those people. So it doesn't. All those things don't matter. Um, but I think that one of the things that people should be moving on quickly is gardening tools, seeds, fertilizers, fertilizers especially. I mean, if you can think about how to create your own fertilizer, you're on your way. Our chickens are going to be a plant, I tell you. I mean, no one wants to deal with it. It's a crappy situation, but it's something that has to be handled, right? But yeah, I'm just watching like you guys are out what's happening out there, and it seems like Russia's paused for a minute. We'll see what that's about. I know that they have put out there that they are requiring the West to pay in rubles by the end of the month. And really, when you look at the countries that are most exposed, you're looking at Germany and the Netherlands. And Germany, to their credit, is starting to understand maybe getting rid of all their nuclear plants and trusting on Russia to take care of their needs wasn't so smart, kind of like we did with our pharmaceuticals with China. And the idea that we're going to build things in the future in the West at home is a good idea. I mean, it's going to require a lot of automation, but there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be dislocated who don't have resources. And how are we going to help them? How are we going to help one another? And I don't know if we can do it. I mean, it'd be nice if we could. It'd be important, but I mean, there's not that much humanity, and people are going to fight for their tribes, and that's okay. I mean, we have tribes, and I admit it. Look, I've been out there speaking tribalism for years. I think it's an inescapable part of the human condition. I mean, unless you're going to have a universal faith, and we're not going to get there anytime soon. So that's as much as I'd like to see everyone adopt the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm a realist. It's not going to happen. Christians can take care of each other, and I hope you become a Christian. I pray for that. If you look at the lessons that Jesus taught, they're the lessons we need today. They're relevant in good times and bad, and that's one of the things. It's like we were looking for advantage instead of what was actually effective. We were trying to understand ourselves. We were trying to own and manipulate and use things, and we need to change our mindset. And so I'm going to keep working on that, and that's what's important to me. I mean, I spent my whole life being tempted by the allure of politics, right? And every now and then I look at it, I'm like, oh, I wish I could do this, but in reality, we're not there anymore. We are at a place where we have to have each other, and that's what this channel is going to be about. That's what I'm going to do. We're going to talk about what's true. We're going to talk, the faith. We're going to talk about family. We're going to talk about folk. We're going to talk about future and what that looks like. And, hopefully, maybe one day it'll be 50 families up in the middle of Maine no one knows about. And we'll have, some good food. We'll have some goat milk and we'll have some cheese and, maybe even, I'll make some cider. I mean, I actually figured out how to make this amazing mead with maple syrup as well. It was one of those things. Syrup, I guess you're supposed to say. I've never said that word right. It's one of those two words I say wrong, syrup and sorry. I say sorry and Dana laughs at me because I'm trying to correct things I say wrong and, figure these things out. But it's just like, and I think this is the thing for the West. There isn't the energy to do big things because we can't trust one another. We know the system is bad. We know that they may ask us to do something. They may try to impose us. I mean, God forbid, imagine if they try a draft. If they try a draft, that'd be the only thing I'd fight against. You ain't drafted me. I'm not working for the government. I'm not working for FEMA. I'm not working for any of these things. I mean, you're evil. And you don't know you're evil, but you are evil because you're trying to force people to do things they don't want to do. And they're not good things. I mean, what? So that you could have more debt-based usury? I mean, just declare Jubilee. Take the loss. I mean, really, why not? Take the loss. This is what they used to do in ancient history, Solon, the Greeks. I mean, they used to do it. So it's biblical too. Every was it 5 years, 7 years, whatever it was, they had a jubilee, and they'd forgive the debts, because debt is nothing but a bondage upon humanity. And this is what we deal with. But we deal with these systems where we're presumed, ideologically, we have to adhere. Financially, we owe these debts, and it's like all these pieces of paper say we can't be free. Eventually, who knows? Maybe it'll be a bunch of us. If things get much worse, we'll be just a bunch of squatters who claim land owned by some, let's say, logging company. Oh, maple mead. That's awesome. I love it. I would love to try some. You'll have to bring some at some point if you ever come visit. I'd love to try that. I made mine the old fashioned way. I mean, I'm very low tech, got stone jugs, and anyway, but it was good. At least one batch was pretty awful, but just with basic yeast, and you learn these skills, and you do things like that. But yeah, I mean, maybe that's the answer. Maybe I'm still too caught up in the idea of private property. I mean, I think people need space that's their own. Don't misunderstand me. But the idea that just because, someone owned it from way back when, that you don't have, there's an obligation that's permanent, I think that's more than I'm willing to contemplate. And want to say good morning to Dana. We were talking about, since you just beat in here, we'll say a lot of people expressed their condolences for Barb and her loss. And what I was sharing was, just so she understands, because I'm down here hiding in the bathroom because I didn't feel like hearing the birds again this morning, is just it's the little things in life that have value at this point. It's not the big things. It's the maple mead. It's the idea of the new recipe you make. It's the smaller world, and that's okay. And it's okay if our world gets smaller and simpler, because I think if it's been too complex. I think we've tried to do too much. Um, I think we're still trying to do too much, honestly. And, it's not that there's not room for innovation. I think that's good. I mean, saving time is helpful. Lord knows I have a bad back. I don't want to have to use it more than I have to. But on the other hand, sometimes it's the time you invest in things. It's like, and sometimes it's the things that have no utility. The problem with having so much to do is we don't have time for the things we want to do. We only have time for the things we're told we have to do. I mean, think of how much time, like, I just use a simple example that a lot of people have learned that they're fighting back against, is you commuting. And I say this to someone. I lived in Pittsburgh, and I would commute. I'd spend an hour every morning, going 5 miles, sitting in a stack of cars, breathing exhaust, trying to force coffee into my system, to sit in, got a little garrote around my neck as a tie, and go down there and sit there and pretend like this system meant something. And we now have tools, I mean, that allow us to decentralize, where we don't have to have those choices anymore, where we can be closer to the earth, where we can be closer to each other. And if that means we have to be smaller and more separated, if we have at least a little modicum of ethics and dignity, we can do that. And I think it's better. I just, because I mean, the big things, people think, oh, we're going to fix people. You can't fix people. We're broken, and we were designed to be broken. I mean, it's just we fall to our worst impulses and our best impulses, and they're kind of one and the same. The idea that we can have some massive plan that fixes everything. I don't know. I'm not with it. It's just because I've tried it too many times. All that ends up happening is you go insane trying to change people. And people don't change. That's why I don't try to save everyone at this point. I don't try to come up with magical solutions or big ideological things. I can tell you that everyone trying to do that is a form of insanity, that they're going to destroy one another. And all we can kind of do is get out of the way. And, if we're enjoying ourselves, I mean, really, I think spiritually and morally, you have to begin insulating yourself from that, because this whole world, as it begins tearing itself apart, you're not going to want to watch it. You're not going to want to watch when people can't be fed, and when they're fighting and there's riots in the city. I mean, and look, I watch war footage. I watch terrible things. I mean, do we want to see a bunch of dead people and people being brutal to one another? What kind of people do you think that makes? I mean, do you think it's going to make you happy? You're going to be afraid. You're going to be scared. And we're choosing to be connected to that. And, to some extent, will it come looking for us? Maybe. I mean, you can't help everything, but it's to the extent we can disconnect, we have to disconnect, because that's the path to sanity. And, ultimately, will they come after us and say that we have to be part of the system? Maybe, and they can destroy you, but only you can change you. And that's where I think we need to get ourselves to. Um, you need to stop thinking of money and big things and futures and 401k. The world's gone. Fighting for that world means that you're going to be part of a massive machine at some point, and whether that machine is used to self-destruct or whether that they get you in there, and hey, maybe you live 300 years and you're part machine and you're part cloud computing, and you can see all these different things. But are you really looking for the world to go faster, or do you want it to slow down? And maybe I'm just an old man who's tired, but for me, I want it to slow down. I want to appreciate it. I spent the first 40 years of my life running on a treadmill. I'm ready to step off and just sit there and look around and see what's around me. To actually look and see some things, to hold the bird. And if I have to cry, well, okay, at least I was alive. At least it had some feelings, some experience. The world's going to keep going. I'm going to be gone, and we'll see what comes next. Hopefully New Jerusalem quickly. But that's where I think we got to be. And I know a lot of people who were heavily involved in politics, and a lot of our audience were people who did a lot of things, men of achievement, women as well. And we've looked at this and we've seen it, and we know the crazies at the top. Their plan of trying to cheat death and have complete control. I mean, there's no joy in it. I mean, and I know it sounds ridiculous. I mean, Lord knows I hate to be impractical, but um, what gives your life meaning? What gives your life purpose? In the Middle Ages, I was a medievalist. People spent a lot of time thinking about that. Everything had meaning. Everything had purpose. The world was a little spooky, and it was a little scary, and it was a little small, but it was also meaningful. They had 150 holidays a year. Wouldn't you love to have that? And they'd get together and they'd celebrate, and they had rites of passage, and they had families that were close together. And didn't people live as long? Maybe they didn't, but it was a full life. And there's some things we can save. We don't have to certainly go all the way back, but I mean, I think that the escape is now the story for what we need to do, and it's all that matters. And I've even come to realize for myself. I mean, I don't care if I had to leave this country, if I had to leave this house. The only thing I'm really not willing to leave behind is my wife. So we'll go where the opportunity goes, and we'll follow that. Good morning, Hippo. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. God bless. I sent you a couple comments about your question on the birds, by the way. So I definitely appreciate that. I hope you're doing well. 1 second, please. Well, I'll be grateful when my body works again. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting there. So I'm trying out. I'm an old war horse. I'm sure I'll be able to continue a little while longer, and then we'll get a little haircut, a little shave now that winter's coming here. So I like to keep the hair here because it gives a little strength. But we'll certainly clean this up a little bit, so I can look a little more respectable than sort of your favorite overeducated hillbilly here that I present as. I always have people say, "Oh, why don't you get more dressed up so people take you seriously?" I don't care if people take me seriously. I do this as a public service announcement, if you really want to think of it that way, for friends who stood by me in hard times and who I would like to know better. I mean, a lot of you guys, I really wish I did have a chance to know you better, and I'd rather spend more time doing that. It's like for me, I spend time being a full-time caretaker. That's why I don't have a regular job. Why I write books and do things, because I got to take care of my wife, and I'm going to stay with her because that's what's important to me. That's why your contributions help so much, because you don't only just keep me afloat, you help keep her afloat. It's that's what it is, and that's why the gifts at the Venmo, CVC, PRV, and the super chats are so helpful, which I appreciate that for. Let's see. It's like watching a train wreck. But you don't want to look out, but you're curious to see for a second. Yeah, no, it is a train wreck. I don't. It's true. I can't help it. I look too. I'll own that. But at some point, we're not going to want to look because you'll be blinded by the light. But we all kind of look, and hopefully the next generation, if there is one, will learn, and maybe we'll have to do a couple things to help make that happen. But we don't want to look. But thank you, George, for saying I'm a good teacher. I try to be. I try to be more than being a good teacher. I try to be a good learner. I try to because I'm not a good student. I'm a terrible student because I'm very smart. So like a lot of really smart, precocious students, and I know we got a lot of people in this group who fit that. We're very good at a lot of things, so when we're bad at things, we don't like to do them. For instance, me in construction. I would tell you it is a easier thing for me to write 10 books than to build one chicken coop. That's absolutely true, and it's why I'm disproportionately proud of the chicken coop, because it was a lot harder, because we all have different talents and abilities, and being able to pool those is a wonderful thing. I mean, I can use words like weapons, but But yeah, no, I would love it, and I feel like that's one of the things. I've been blessed in this year. A couple people who've come into my life. I didn't want to mention names by names, but they know who they are. Who have really served as a mentor sort of role, which is not something I looked for or expected here in my 40s. People who 60s, 70s, whatever, who have shared some ideas, who have been good friends and companions and helped clarify certain ideas. I don't know why they take an interest in me. Maybe they're just bored. Maybe they want to give back, or who knows? Maybe the Intel people haven't given up on me yet. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder about that, but I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the chance to have real conversations. And I used to be someone when I had conversations with people. It was always like, I was like, okay, well, we talk about the small stuff as a means to get to the big stuff, the ideology, the big fights, the things we do together. And after doing a lot of big things together and ending up very lonely as we separated over these causes, I'm not looking to have causes. I'm looking to have friendships. I'm looking to have connections. I'm looking to build a real bonds of friendship and kinship, and it starts, of course, with the common belief of survival, but it also starts with the idea of the good life, and that's what we need to find, la vita bella. Maybe that's why the Italians actually figured it out after all their years of doing Rome. What do? They sit around having pasta, drinking and laughing about it, and maybe that's what we needed, a little bit more of that. Maybe to be a little less Anglo-Saxon, or me being a Slav, being angry about different things and trying to fix things. I don't know. But anyway, let's see. Is there anything else? So if there's any questions, bring them up now. I will be, like I said, I'm still technically on sabbatical, but I am visiting here left and right, and I am going to do some evening shows as health and circumstances allow. Right now, we're in a little bit of a pause as they seem to be shifting between narratives. We'll keep an eye on that. I certainly will give you updates on what's happening. I do plan on doing a good sermon this Sunday on Solomon. I think you'll like it. I wanted to do it last week, but if we just have to see. I've been spending half my afternoons. I'm not even kidding. My head's been in a fishbowl. If you've ever had like a bad head cold, in a lot of ways, it's like that. When that pressure comes, I just can't focus. But I was blessed to get up early this morning, get some work done. Then after this, actually, after I get this, I'll heat up the wife's coffee, and that I have so many eggs. I'm going to feed the birds their own eggs to help give them some additional protein. I'm probably going to make, like, I'm not even kidding, like 20 scrambled eggs for them, but they'll be happy, and they're doing well, so that's good with the flock. Maybe we'll even get some chicks. We got an incubator now, so we're ready to roll with that, so that'll be good. And other than that, I think that's kind of what the focus is going to be. I'm just going to keep focusing on the writing. I'm anticipating, if all goes well, to have the first draft done with Surviving the Fall of America by the end of next week. Have some peer readers who I'd like to take a look at it. We'll probably have an editor take a look at it as well. So probably be a week beyond that, and we'll put it in front of you for your consideration. I've had so many of you say you want me to write fiction. I'm thinking about it. That is a very different challenge. I have to get myself into a different headspace for that, and share the stories. But maybe sharing the story of what Pineland could be would be a good one. I'm always scared to share good news because I don't want people to try to steal it from me. I'm so paranoid. It's ridiculous. I lose. Well, yeah. Believe me, if you come down here, we ain't ever letting you go back to Canada. So the help would be appreciated. But yeah, that would be good. And we'll work on it, and we'll continue talking, and we'll have some comfortable things, some schizo chats. You guys can have a good time with that. I haven't been able to really relax too much, just because of everything that's been coming at us. But I would just ask here at the end, pray for us, and we'll pray for you. And if you need help, look for wisdom, look for help in the community, and that would be absolutely awesome. That would be really, really good. So I just want to say the Lord's blessing upon each of you. We will be doing some interviews as well, too. Free Green and I are scheduled to do an interview. I got to do a little bit of work getting the internet setup thing right, but we've got the programs, the software, and if not for the fact I've been floating in my head like a giant bobblehead, it would be good, because I do want to do more interviews in the future. That's something that I think will be good for this channel, and I want to invite you, seriously, either within the channel or as part of an affiliate. Pineland is not a one-man project. It's something we encourage everyone to be involved with and to help develop it. I mean, I've sort of put out the core elements of it, I think, in the sense that, we're looking to build a folk. We're looking to, well, I put in this sort of faith folk family, right? That we have a common belief that unites us, that we're coming together as a tribe, and that we become an extended family. And I think that's really good. And I want to continue building that. And I encourage you to talk about that and what that means, and in different ways. It doesn't have to be big politics. It's what it means to you. This is how we have to do things these days. This is how we connect social media, and the mindset, the shifting that you allow in your own, even if you're just speaking out like I do, voice of consciousness, you can really begin to figure out what it is you want to accomplish. And then you start thinking about your priorities in life. And that's what I challenge you, to do in this channel, to think about what your priorities are at this point going forward, and to figure out how you have to land. We all have obligations we have to meet, but we can try to help one another. And I'm grateful that you guys have helped us so much with the support and with your prayers. So let me just close with a simple prayer. Heavenly Father, I just pray that you look upon us with favor and help us understand your vision for what we can do in this world so that we can be happier and closer to you, in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. God bless each and every one of you. I will be back. I don't know what morning, but we will keep an eye on events, and I will be around, and I will be in periodically in the Telegram group, t.me/Atlantic Homeland. Reminder, you want to support the program, the Venmo CVC PRV, PO Box 343, Eagle Lake, Maine, 04739. And go get a book. Go get an audio book. Go get something that's good. And then we'll talk about some other stuff. So I might try to do some other stuff, too, going forward, talking about some more ancient history. We did a really good chat that was through the Telegram thing. I think it would be fun to do that. Maybe I'll invite Kinez on, and we'll do a show about that after I finish this next book. So give me another week or so. I'm working hard on it. We've got I'd say we're about 40 pages in, 45 pages in. That's a pretty good start. So I'm not writing super long books these days because honestly, who has the attention span for it? I don't, and I don't think you do either. That's what you've told me. I believe you. So hopefully it'll be a good one. God bless. You guys have a good rest of your morning, and I'm going to go make my wife some coffee. Have a good day. Bye-bye.